I wanted to ask you, Richard, about one very special experience you had, and that was the case when the Russians destroyed the Nova Kakhovka dam in Kherson Oblast, the largest on the square water reservoir in Europe, 3 times bigger than Lake Constance on border between Germany and Switzerland. It was destroyed in the night, and all the water went out of the through this bridge and flooded incredible region in Ukraine. And you came there to help. Like, what was the idea? What was the things which you saw for the first time when you arrived?
Yeah, so very interestingly, this was actually the first time that we decided to take a load of kids from an orphanage, and we took them for a holiday in the Carpathian Mountains. And lots of my donors online paid so that we could give these kids a break for the first time this year. And just as we were driving up into the mountains, the news was breaking about the dam that had been hit by exploded, destroyed. And we understood at that moment that we had to think and plan what our first initial actions would be, because a lot of people instantly started sending buses full, sorry, not buses full, but empty buses down to Kherson to evacuate the people. And the buses turned up and people said, no, Kherson is our home. We want to stay here. We've survived through all of the Russian occupation. A bit of water is not going to not going to take us from our homes. So they all stayed around the Kherson city. And this was why it was so important to do this planning and to reach out to the amazing Brennpunkt community, because we very quickly from our teams on the ground got a list of everything that they needed in terms of humanitarian aid, in terms of what they needed, whether that was food or generators. And within 24 hours or so, we had the whole list of everything that we needed, whilst we were up in the Carpathians with these kids from the orphanage. And we'd managed to organize 2 speedboats to head down there by the time that we were there, because the water levels at that point, I think, were something like 4 or 5 meters high. It was above all of the houses, because by the time that we got there, it just started receding and you could just see the tops of the houses. So yeah, we then 2 days later, after we'd we'd sent the kids back to Lviv, we drove straight down to Kherson, got in these speedboats and started, going across the water, very, very close to the Russian occupied territory. And we were delivering the food and, most importantly, the water, because they were completely cut off from water. They were cut off from power to these little islands in the Kherson area. And all of this was under the artillery shelling from the Russians. Every 5 seconds, we had another shell coming in. And stupidly at that time, I was very naive and I thought, oh, well, they're not aiming for us. It's just exploding around us. And it turns out they were targeting us, but they were just crap at aiming. And unfortunately, we found that out because the next day, one of the boats that we were keeping on the water, keeping it fueled up and heading out each time, got hit by the Russian artillery. And the way that we know it was the Russian artillery is the Russians gleefully uploaded a video saying, oh, we killed some mercenaries in their boat. And they showed the video of our guys getting hit, very clearly humanitarian, no military clothing or anything like that. And the artillery hit close enough that it shredded all the way through the boat. It went into the body of a British volunteer. And yeah, even 6 months later or so, he still had that shrapnel inside of him. So yeah, it was just the whole time that we were down there, we were constantly, as humanitarian people, being targeted by the Russians at every moment whilst we were trying to save these cats and dogs and people from their homes. Yeah, it was a complete hell, but yeah, we have the videos now online at FrontLineKit, and you can see these little dogs and cats being rescued from the buildings. And I even captured the traumatic moment that the services said to us, the military said to us, sorry, Rich, we're not going to be saving the people from their houses anymore because the people are dead. And it's now a rescue operation. And we're going to need to go out in these boats and actually recover the bodies. And yeah, moment, my face dropped when Ernest told me. But I said, okay, like if it's what we need to do, we need to do. We're here to help Ukraine in whatever capacity that is. And we're going to do whatever is needed in that scenario and that moment.